I realized something was wrong the night she laughed at me across the dinner table. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, no one else even reacted, but it landed in my chest like a quiet confirmation of something I'd been trying not to see. We were sitting there like a normal family, plates half full, the TV murmuring in the background, my son talking about work. I was listening, nodding, trying to stay present. Then I made a small comment, nothing important, just a thought, a memory, and she looked at me and smiled. That smile turned into a soft laugh, not mocking, not cruel, just dismissive. The kind of laugh you give when someone says something harmless but irrelevant, like their words don't really belong in the room. I stopped talking mid-sentence. My son didn't notice, or maybe he noticed and chose not to react. He kept eating, kept scrolling his phone, completely unaware that something had shifted right in front of him. And that hurt more than the laugh itself, because in that moment, I didn't feel like a father. I didn't feel like family. I felt like a guest who had overstayed his welcome. After that night, I started paying closer attention to things I used to brush off. The way she spoke to me wasn't openly rude. It was polished, careful, almost friendly, but there was always a thin layer of superiority underneath it, like she was humoring me rather than talking to me. I noticed how she'd interrupt gently, correcting small details that didn't matter, how she'd explain simple things slowly as if I couldn't keep up, how every conversation somehow circled back to her work, her schedule, her pressure, her importance. And I let it happen. I told myself this was normal, that times change, that maybe this was just how confident people talked now. I didn't want to be the older father-in-law who felt threatened for no reason, so I stayed quiet. I dressed the same, I drove the same old car, I never mentioned where I'd worked or what I'd built before I stepped back. I thought keeping my life simple would keep the peace. Instead, it did something else. It taught her exactly how small she thought I was. And once someone decides you're insignificant, they stop hiding it. Family dinners slowly stopped feeling like time together and started feeling like something I had to earn. She would take over the room without raising her voice, deciding when we ate, what we talked about, how long we stayed. If I shared a story from my past, she'd smile and steer the conversation somewhere more relevant. If I asked my son a question, she'd answer for him before he could open his mouth. What bothered me wasn't her confidence, it was how easily my son followed it. He laughed when she laughed, he changed plans when she suggested it. He stopped calling me the way he used to, not suddenly, gradually, quietly, like a door closing 1 inch at a time. I remember one night in particular, we were talking about the holidays, and I mentioned how we used to do things when he was younger. She tilted her head and said lightly, "That was a long time ago. We do things differently now." The way she said "we" told me everything. I looked at my son, waiting for him to say something, to include me, to remind her I was still part of his life. He didn't. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just her attitude. It was the space she was creating between us, and how comfortable everyone had become living inside it. The breaking point didn't come with an argument, it came with a suggestion. We were at a small gathering, nothing formal, just a few relatives and friends. Conversation drifted the way it always did, and somehow it landed on me again, on how much free time I must have now, how relaxed my life seemed compared to theirs. She smiled and said, almost kindly, "You know, maybe you should find a few hobbies. It might help you not feel so left out." The room went quiet.
Not awkward quiet, uncomfortable quiet, the kind where everyone pretends to look busy so they don't have to react. I felt my face warm, not from anger, but from embarrassment. Not because her words were harsh, but because they were spoken like advice, like she was doing me a favor. I waited, just for a second, for my son to laugh it off, to change the subject, to say something simple like, "Hey, that's my dad." He didn't. He just shifted in his seat and looked down at his drink. And that's when it hit me, not as a rush, but as a slow, sinking realization. I wasn't being pushed out loudly. I was being edited out quietly, one polite comment at a time. So I stopped fighting it. I stopped calling first, stopped offering help, stopped trying to prove I still mattered. I told myself distance might give us space to reset. What I didn't realize then was that silence doesn't always heal things. Sometimes it just gives other people room to decide who you are without you there to correct them.
Around that same time, her life seemed to speed up. Every time we spoke, when we still spoke, there was news about her job, a new responsibility, a new title, a project she couldn't talk about but wanted everyone to admire. She carried it like proof that she was moving forward while others stayed behind. She'd mentioned the company name often, casually, confidently, like it was something I should remember. And I did. Not because I was impressed, but because it sounded familiar in a way I couldn't ignore. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Big companies have similar names, similar structures, similar language. But the more she talked, the more details slipped through. Departments, processes, internal reviews, things most people wouldn't notice, things I did. I never corrected her, never hinted. I just listened, quietly connecting dots she didn't realize she was drawing for me. There was something unsettling about hearing my own past described back to me by someone who had no idea I was part of it. She talked about leadership like it was something she deserved by default, about rules as obstacles, about people above her as temporary. And I remember thinking, not with anger, but with a strange calm, that she truly believed no one was watching. That's when I understood something important. The distance she created at home was the same confidence she carried into her work. And sooner or later, that kind of confidence always meets the wrong silence. What she never knew was that I hadn't disappeared from the world the way she thought I had. I had stepped back, yes, chosen a quieter role. No titles that impressed people at dinner tables, no stories that made others lean in, but I still worked, selectively, privately, as a senior legal consultant. I reviewed cases most people never heard about. I signed off on decisions that never made headlines. And one afternoon, her name appeared in a file on my desk. At first, I didn't react. Names repeat, companies grow. But as I read further, the familiarity returned. Her department, her division, her recent rise, all of it aligned too perfectly to ignore. I leaned back in my chair and felt something tighten in my chest. Not satisfaction, not anger, but conflict. Because this wasn't just a professional matter anymore. This was family. This was my son's wife. This was the woman who had quietly decided I was irrelevant. The file wasn't alarming on the surface. Strong performance, ambition, results. But there were notes, small flags, decisions pushed through too quickly, compliance steps treated like formalities instead of safeguards. Nothing illegal, nothing dramatic,
just patterns, the kind that don't ruin careers immediately, but eventually tell you exactly who someone is when they think no one above them is paying attention. I closed the file without making a note. That night, I sat alone in my living room, staring at the dark TV screen, realizing I was standing at a line I never wanted to reach, between being a father who stayed silent and a professional who couldn't pretend not to see what was right in front of him. And for the first time, I understood the choice ahead of me wasn't about revenge. It was about whether silence was still the right thing or just the easiest.
For days, I said nothing. I didn't call her, I didn't mention work, I didn't ask my son how things were going. On the surface, everything stayed calm, but inside me, the weight of knowing sat heavy. Every conversation replayed differently now, every dismissive smile, every polite correction, every moment she made me feel unnecessary. It all lined up with the way she treated rules and people at work. I watched from a distance as she grew more confident. Her tone sharpened, her patience thinned. Even my son sounded different when he talked about her lately. Tired, careful, like he was choosing words instead of speaking freely. Then another file crossed my desk. This one wasn't about promotion. It was a routine ethics review tied to her department. Standard procedure, usually uneventful. But as I read through it, the same patterns appeared again. Rushed approvals, justifications that sounded rehearsed, a belief that outcomes mattered more than process. I realized something unsettling in that moment. She wasn't just unaware of me, she was unaware of consequence, and that was the most dangerous kind of confidence there is. I didn't intervene, I didn't protect her either. I simply did what I'd always done in my work, asked for a formal review meeting. Nothing dramatic, nothing personal, just procedure. When the meeting date was set, I felt no relief, no excitement, only a quiet heaviness, knowing that whatever happened next would change more than just her career. Because once authority steps into a room, pretending you're just family stops being an option. The day of the meeting arrived without warning at home. She was distracted that morning, talking into her phone, pacing, confident as ever. She mentioned an important review, brushed it off like a formality, and reminded my son how far she'd come. Neither of them noticed how still I was. I arrived early. The room was glass and steel, quiet in that professional way that makes every sound feel deliberate. Board members filtered in, exchanging small talk. When I took my seat, no one questioned it. They never did. She walked in last. At first, she didn't see me. She set up her presentation, straightened her jacket, smiled at the room. Then her eyes moved across the table and stopped. There was no panic, just a brief pause, a flicker of confusion, like seeing someone from a place you didn't expect them to exist. I nodded once, not as family, not as a warning, as authority. She recovered quickly, too quickly, started speaking, confident, rehearsed, explaining decisions she'd never had to defend out loud before. I listened without interrupting, letting the room absorb her certainty. When it was my turn, I didn't expose her. I asked questions, simple ones. Why this step was skipped, why this approval moved faster than policy allowed, why exceptions were becoming patterns. Her answers tightened. The confidence shifted into control, then into defense. The room grew quieter with every response, and in that silence, something finally became clear, not just to her, but to everyone present.
The man she had dismissed for months wasn't there to embarrass her. He was there because he'd always been watching.
When the meeting ended, there was no announcement, no raised voices, no dramatic conclusion. Just a decision. Her promotion wasn't approved, not rejected, not punished, simply paused. The kind of pause that forces reflection, the kind that tells you someone above you is paying attention now. She packed her things quietly, avoided looking in my direction. The room emptied in the same calm way it always did after decisions were made, but I could feel the shift. Power doesn't have to shout when it changes hands. That evening, my phone rang. It was my son. His voice sounded different, careful, uncertain. He didn't accuse me. He didn't defend her either. He just said she'd come home upset, confused, asking questions he didn't know how to answer. I listened. I told him only what he needed to know, that I hadn't acted out of spite, that my role required me to be fair, that the distance between us hadn't started at a boardroom table. There was a long pause on the line. Then he asked the question I'd been waiting for without realizing it. Why didn't you ever tell us who you really were? I answered honestly, because I thought being his father was supposed to be enough. A few days later, he came to my house alone. No anger, no speeches, just quiet recognition of how easily respect can disappear when silence fills the space where truth should be. I didn't demand apologies. I didn't explain myself further. I didn't need to. Because sometimes the most satisfying ending isn't watching someone fall. It's watching them finally see you, right when you've stopped needing them to. Time passed and things didn't snap back into place the way movies pretend they do. She didn't suddenly become warm. I didn't suddenly become welcome. What changed was quieter than that. She stopped laughing when I spoke. When we were in the same room, there was a careful distance now. Respect, maybe, or caution. Either way, the version of me she had invented no longer fit, and she didn't try to replace it with another one. My son started calling again, not to complain, not to explain, just to talk, about work, about stress, about things he used to share before everything became managed and filtered. We never fully revisited that dinner table moment. We didn't need to. Some realizations don't require confrontation to settle in. What I learned through all of it stayed with me. That humility, when misunderstood, can look like weakness. That silence can protect you, but it can also erase you. And that authority doesn't come from reminding people who you are, but from knowing exactly when you don't need to. I didn't win anything that day in the boardroom. I just stopped being invisible. And strangely enough, that was more than enough. Years from now, no one will remember the meeting or the paused promotion, but I'll remember the moment I understood something about family and power that took me a lifetime to learn. You don't lose people all at once. You lose them slowly, through small dismissals, quiet laughter, and unspoken assumptions. And you don't always get them back by proving your worth. Sometimes you get them back by standing still long enough for the truth to catch up. I didn't reclaim my place by reminding anyone who I was. I reclaimed it by finally deciding that I didn't need to explain myself to be respected. And once that happens, the room changes, whether you say a word or not.
And that's the part people don't talk about. How power feels different when you no longer need it to be seen. I still sit at family tables. I still listen more than I speak. I still drive the same car. Nothing about my life looks more impressive than it did before. But now, when I speak, no one laughs.
Not because they're afraid of who I am, but because they finally understand that respect has nothing to do with titles and everything to do with how easily it can be lost. I didn't change, they did. And that quiet shift was the only justice I ever needed. There's a strange peace that comes after everything settles. No applause, no final confrontation, just a clear understanding of where everyone stands. I never brought it up again. Neither did she, and my son slowly found his way back to speaking freely around me like he used to, not because I demanded space, but because I no longer competed for it. If there's one thing this taught me, it's this. People will treat you based on the version of you they're allowed to see. But the moment you stop trying to correct them, the truth has a way of revealing itself anyway. Not loudly, not dramatically, just in time. And that's where I'll leave it. Not with a victory or a downfall or a dramatic apology, but with clarity. I didn't regain my place by asserting authority at home. I didn't heal things by exposing anyone publicly. I simply stopped shrinking to make others comfortable. Somewhere along the way, that changed everything. Because when you stop begging to be seen, the people who matter eventually look up and realize who's been there the whole time. There's nothing more to add after that. Life moved on in small, ordinary ways. Holidays came and went, conversations grew easier. The tension that once filled the room never returned, not because it was resolved, but because it lost its power. I didn't become closer to everyone. I became clearer with myself. And that, more than any reveal or consequence, was the moment I finally felt at peace. I learned that night at the dinner table wasn't the beginning of my silence. It was the moment I stopped mistaking silence for weakness. Respect didn't return because I revealed who I was. It returned because I stopped allowing myself to be reduced to who they assumed I was. And once that boundary settled in me, everything else adjusted naturally. No announcements, no revenge speech, no need for proof. Just a quiet understanding that dignity doesn't need permission and authority doesn't need introduction. That's how it ended.